let's hop in. I don't have any rambling for you guys today. I'm going to jump into this review because it'll be a shorter review. Where's the book? Oh. The Alchemy of Flowers by Laura Resau, or Resau. I hope I pronounced that right. Hi, my name is Alana. I don't ever introduce myself anymore on this channel. The name is right there. My name is Lana. Welcome to my YouTube channel. And on this channel, we review books. Finally sitting down, and what is it? It's August 23rd. This is my batch of book reviews and book content for the month of September. That's what we're doing. I got some pretty exciting videos. I had to look down at the stack of books at my feet for this month of September. So 2 reviews, autumn reading recommendations, and what I'm planning to read for the autumn months. And I was tagged by 2 different people to do the big book tag. So big books that are worth the effort, worth the read, 800 plus pages. So that's also coming. Oh, and Mrs. Palfrey at the Claremont is the other review for the month of September. So yeah, let's hop in. I don't feel like rambling. I just don't. Nights were when I felt unsettled, when the underbelly of paradise revealed itself. That's actually going to be the only quote for this review. If you know, I typically use a lot of quotes in a review. No need for this book, not because there weren't some moments that I highlighted or not. It's just, this was sent to me by the publicity company, K Publicity. I've mentioned that publicity company many times over the past few years because they always send me books that I enjoy. And I said, they sent me Smoke on the Wind that I reviewed last month. Yes. And it's a fun read. And this is another one of those books. Just something that was fun to read, but I enjoyed it. Let's hop in. So this is described as the secret garden for adults. I've never read the book. I admit, I have never read The Secret Garden. I owned the book once as a preteen, I think, and I just never read it. And so I don't even own it anymore. I remember the movie. When was that movie released? Hold on, my laptop's right in front of me. Remember, I think it was in the 90s. I remember as a kid, really 1993. I was a toddler, barely, when that came out. So I saw it probably as a kid when I was not way older but yeah, I was too young to have seen it and memorized to even knew what I was watching when it first came out, the film. Anyway, I'm dating myself or not dating myself. Yeah. So it's considered the secret garden for adults. I was just curious when the film came out that I'm familiar with. I do remember Maggie Smith being in it. But maybe I should rewatch this. I remember liking it as a kid. But could I tell you anything about it? No, I couldn't. I was very, very young. Where's my review? So yes, this is described as a secret garden for adults. The main character, Eloise, she leaves Colorado to move to the south of France to work as a gardener for a very large, albeit mysterious estate in the south of France. And this estate is called Paradise. And it's managed by a very cryptic and elusive woman named Antoinette. Paradise has very strict rules that the inhabitants must adhere to. There are not many inhabitants on this property, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. But the rules are: 1 is not allowed to gossip. 1 must be inside during twilight. So during twilight, you're not allowed to be out on the property or in the gardens. I thought I heard my work cell phone vibrate. Because this is also, the room where I record is also where I work from home. On days I work from home. And my work phone is right there. And I thought I heard it vibrate. And I'm like, So, but during that, let's get back to it. The hours of twilight. You can be out before the hours of twilight. You're allowed to be out at night, but not during twilight. And absolutely, under no circumstances are children allowed on the premises. Those are the 3 rules. So Eloise, our main character and narrator, so this story is told in the first person perspective. I always get a little tongue-tied. I always get a little tongue-tied when I sit down to record a video for the first time in 4 weeks. But the main character Eloise is suffering from the weight of not being able to have her own children. And so the last rule of this estate is what drew her in. So Eloise, again, she leaves Colorado. She is divorced. Her and her husband had tried to have children. She's had multiple miscarriages. And so escaping to paradise is her way of leaving the past behind and a lot of that pain, but also to regenerate. However, she does come to suspect that there is a child lingering on the grounds of paradise as she spots small footprints and movements in the gardens. She hears some subtle giggling and she sees like these movements, and is it a shadow? Did I just see a flash of color? What is that? She isn't sure if she's making it up, if it's an actual child, or if it's some type of spirit or entity. From the very beginning, once Eloise goes to paradise, it's evident that there is something otherworldly on this property. And so again, go back to it being described as the Secret Garden for adults. There is some magical realism in this story. There are also 3 other inhabitants on paradise: Mina, Bao, and Raphael. They each have different roles on paradise. Take like Raphael is he's kind of like your handyman on the property. Bao takes care of the estate as far as like the wildlife and things like that. Mina, oh shoot, what does Mina do? Mina is an excellent cook. Okay. They all come to paradise for their own reasons to heal. And the 4 of them form a very tight bond quickly, which is a balm to Eloise. So the 3 were already there, and then Mina is able to be grafted into this group because she's left her life and her relationships in the United States. And as you can imagine, when it comes to divorce, that relationship is not what it used to be. She's left a lot of her friends, partially because she was also grieving. She's not able to have children. So grief and depression, you'll sever ties due to your mental state. However, when Eloise brings up these bizarre sightings that she notices on the grounds of paradise, the 3 others remain aloof and cryptic. And Eloise knows, or she has a suspicion that they're hiding something. But they just tell her, oh, just ignore it, ignore the bizarre things. So they're acknowledging that there are strange things that they have seen, but they're telling her to let it go. Just ignore it, enjoy your time here, obey the rules, be good, stay in your lane, and you won't have any problems. Like I said, there's some magical realism in this novel. Eloise also notices that when she's moving around the grounds, so she's the gardener, she has a way with plants, she has a green thumb. I do not have a green thumb. You guys, I kill succulents, okay? But Eloise, she is an amazing gardener. She has a way with the flowers. And there are statues. All of these statues are also female mythological creatures or deities. A lot of allusion to or inspired by statues of, let's say, Aphrodite, the Fates, a lot of Greek and Roman mythological female deities and characters. And she notices that these statues, their faces change. And at first she's like, am I hallucinating this? They may look like they're smiling at you one day and the next they're grimacing at her. And when Eloise does something naughty, when she's not following the rules, these statues' faces are looking at her like, girl, we know what you done did. So there's that element in the background. Eloise also glimpses 3 cloaked women during twilight. Eloise likes to break the rules. I mean, come on. You already know that in a narrative, when there are rules set in place, especially 3 strict rules, there's going to be at least one character who's going to break those rules. Eloise is the rule breaker. And in my opinion, I was like a true American. Eloise is the true American in this plot because none of the other characters are American. Eloise is the only American, and she is stereotypically an American, and I love it. She's like, baby, rules were meant to be broken. And so she starts a revolution. Which is actually, when I was reading, I was like, you go, Eloise, you dump that tea in the harbor. Eloise is that person. She glimpses these three figures at twilight. ... That's all I'm going to say about those three characters. The flowers also speak to Eloise. Again, she has a way with these flowers. She hears them in her head and she talks back to them. And the flowers give her clues and insights regarding her surroundings. One element of this story that I enjoyed is that the author gives each type of flower its own personality. So the roses are going to have a certain personality type. The hydrangeas are going to have a certain personality type. There is a little corner in paradise in the gardens of poisonous flowers. They have their own voices as well. Very interesting. I thought that was unique. There is an atmosphere to this novel. And that's what I liked about it the most. You could describe paradise as being its own character. It has its own gravitational pull. And there's this nice tension between the beauty of the environment and Eloise coming here and it being a balm to her, but at the same time, there's this cord in the back of tension that runs throughout the entire novel. The author never really lets you fully settle in the story. And by that, I mean you never fully feel comfortable. You're always like, something is off here. And it's very nicely done. And it keeps the reader slightly on edge because, as you can assume, something is off. Antoinette is off. Why can't you go out at twilight? Who are these three figures that she sees at twilight? There's a knife that makes an appearance. Why are the statues' faces grimacing at her? Why is there a whole garden, a little corner or section of the garden dedicated to poisonous flowers? So even when everything is going well in the story, you're still paranoid. And so is Eloise. Eloise is convinced that there is a strange, if not ominous, story lurking behind this seemingly benevolent property. And so past inhabitants, Eloise learns, have gone missing, and she's determined to find out what Paradise and Antoinette are hiding. And as Eloise digs deeper, the story behind Paradise starts to unfold, and the deeper she digs, the more she realizes that something is really not right here. And she ends up putting herself and her new friends in danger. Because again, Eloise is breaking rules. And you break rules, you finna have problems. That's the way it goes. But Eloise is a stubborn little somebody. And I like that for her. So I'm actually gonna wrap it up. This was a short review. A short for me. That's essentially the plot. It's a more plot heavy than I typically read. The Alchemy of Flowers is one of those novels that it is a nice reprieve from what I typically read. I typically gravitate towards novels that are philosophically, existentially, and theologically dense. I typically pick up novels, as you guys know, what my favorite types of classics in particular are. The Dostoevskys of the world, okay? When it comes to contemporary literary fiction, I mean, the Jan Fosses who's asking these really deep theological and existential questions. I like it dark and moody. I like existential dread. But this is one of those novels, again, I read this alongside the second half of the Books of Jacob by Olga Tokarczuk. And that book needs a companion like this, where it's just, you pick up the story, it's faster paced. It's one of those stories where you can't you're like, what happens next? I need to know what happens next because of that tension that the author draws nicely or creates nicely. And you have a main character that's a little hard-headed, okay? She's a little stubborn. Like I said, she likes to break the rules, but she means well. And there's also a romance that develops between Eloise and Raphael. Couple that with an eerie undertone that when I first picked it up, it actually reminded me of Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. The plots have nothing to do with each other, but you have the nameless main character in Rebecca in this manner. She married this guy she barely knows, and there's this undercurrent of something having been off or is off in the story. Also, there's a lot of mention of the gardens in Rebecca and the types of flowers that Rebecca liked having the widow of the man that she's married to. There's a lot of imagery with that. And so I think that's why my brain made that connection. It was just a nice pairing to something as dense and long as Books of Jacob. Sometimes I have to remind myself to read more stories like this, right? Because you need a fun book every now and then. This book also focuses on the importance of relationships. And again, it's not just the chemistry of Eloise and Raphael that you have this romance that's budding, all puns intended, but the platonic friendships here are also emphasized. The relationship between Eloise and Mina, which becomes a sister-like relationship. And so the four of these characters create their own family. And that's a nice element. You know, I think that sometimes just platonic friendships aren't written enough in fiction. And so we get a blend of both platonic and romantic relationship here. And how those relationships overall are important for the building or the reconstructing of a well-developed human being. Like, that is critical to an individual's health, is having those key, critical, healthy relationships, both platonic and romantic. Again, I'm going to wrap this up. It actually went longer than I intended. This is a more plot-heavy novel than I typically read, but that's what kept me reading. I would often pick this book up at the end of the day. I would get in bed with it and just read until I couldn't keep my eyes open anymore. But it was also one of those reads where I'm like, just one more page. I can do another page. The next thing you know, I'm nodding off, and I have to the next day go back and remember what the parts that I was nodding off at. It was fun. It was fun. You need a book in the mix where you're like, I can just read one more chapter. And that's what this story was, or is, and it was for me. It has, as you can tell, it's got that gothic vibe. Again, it reminded me of Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. And it was just fun to read. I really enjoyed it. I think that the author, Resau, I hope I'm pronouncing the last name right. I typically like to look up the name before I sit down, but I forgot how to pronounce it. But she also is a very descriptive, evocative writer. And this is the type of environment in a story, the setting, that it needs that type of writing to it to just describe this environment. Because again, paradise is a character in and of itself if you choose to read it that way. This was published July 29th. So this book just released July 29th of this year. So if this is an excellent summer read, perfect summer read, or maybe like summer into fall, so perfect timing for me to post this. So yeah, have you heard of this book? It is a recent, very, very recent release. And are you interested? That's it. Just a fun review for you of a book that I just really enjoyed. I give it a 3.5 out of 5. That's it. So also feel free to like, subscribe, leave me a comment below. If you would like, also feel free to follow me on Instagram, where I get up to more bookish shenanigans. I post all of my book content there first, and the occasional post in the Instagram stories. I have barely been posting in my stories because I just don't feel like it. I don't want to. I actually haven't been scrolling. I've been scrolling. I'm trying to warm up. I always have to warm up when I sit down for a video for the first time in about a month. I've been spending less time scrolling and more time reading. Immaculate. That's it. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.